In the spring of 1940, Europe stood on the edge of total war. Nazi Germany had already shocked the world with its rapid invasion of Poland in September 1939, demonstrating a terrifying new style of warfare that combined speed, surprise, and overwhelming force. Now, Adolf Hitler's military leadership turned its attention westward. The objective was clear: defeat France and neutralize Britain by sweeping through Western Europe before the Allies could properly organize their defenses. On May 10, 1940, German forces launched one of the most coordinated military offensives of the war. The invasion targeted the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg simultaneously. German commanders believed that by striking quickly through these countries, they could bypass the heavily fortified French Maginot Line and collapse Allied defenses from the north. For the Netherlands, the invasion came as a devastating shock. For decades, the country had maintained a policy of neutrality. During the First World War, this neutrality had allowed the Dutch to avoid the destruction that engulfed much of Europe. Many hoped that history might repeat itself, but the Second World War would prove very different. German forces crossed the Dutch borders in the early morning hours of May 10th. Armored divisions pushed forward rapidly, while Luftwaffe aircraft roared across the skies above the Low Countries. At the same time, Germany deployed a new and daring tactic that stunned military observers across Europe: large-scale airborne assaults. Thousands of German paratroopers descended from the sky, landing near key bridges, airfields, and transportation hubs. Their mission was to seize strategic infrastructure before Dutch forces could destroy it. Control of bridges would allow German armored units to advance deeper into the country at incredible speed. One of the most important targets was Rotterdam. Rotterdam was not only one of the largest cities in the Netherlands, but also one of the most important ports in Europe. Its vast harbor connected the Rhine River to the North Sea, making it a crucial gateway for trade, industry, and military logistics. Whoever controlled Rotterdam would control one of the most vital transportation networks in Western Europe. German paratroopers quickly seized several key positions near the city, including bridges that crossed the Maas River. However, Dutch forces reacted faster than the Germans had expected. Soldiers, police units, and even civilian volunteers joined the effort to defend the city. Street fighting soon erupted across parts of Rotterdam. Dutch troops managed to isolate several groups of German paratroopers, trapping them in pockets of resistance inside the city. Instead of collapsing quickly, Rotterdam became the scene of a tense and chaotic urban battle. For several days, the fighting continued. German commanders grew increasingly frustrated as their advance slowed. The Netherlands had not yet surrendered, and Rotterdam remained partially in Dutch hands. Now the German High Command faced a decision. They could continue the ground battle and risk a prolonged fight, or they could use the overwhelming power of the Luftwaffe to force the city into submission. What happened next would change the course of the campaign and shock the entire world. By May 14, 1940, the battle for Rotterdam had reached a dangerous stalemate. German forces had captured positions around the city, but Dutch defenders still controlled important sections of the urban center. German paratroopers inside Rotterdam were running low on supplies and ammunition, and the situation was becoming increasingly tense. German commanders demanded that the Dutch surrender the city immediately. An ultimatum was delivered to Dutch authorities. If Rotterdam did not surrender, the Luftwaffe would bomb the city into destruction. The threat was not an empty one. German bombers were already preparing for the mission. Dozens of aircraft waited at nearby airfields, their bomb bays loaded, and their crews briefed on the attack. Dutch commanders hesitated. They knew the consequences could be catastrophic. Rotterdam was densely populated, filled with residential neighborhoods, historic buildings, markets, and warehouses. A major bombing raid could devastate the city and kill thousands of civilians. Negotiations began in a desperate attempt to avoid disaster. Messages were exchanged between German and Dutch officers. Some reports suggest that Dutch representatives were preparing to surrender parts of the city in order to prevent the bombing. But time was running out. While negotiations continued on the ground, German bomber formations were already flying toward Rotterdam. Communication problems and confusion meant that the aircraft were not recalled in time. Shortly after 1:20 p.m. on May 14th, the bombers reached the city. Moments later, the bombing began. Heinkel bombers of the German Luftwaffe released their payloads over the center of Rotterdam. Hundreds of bombs rained down across the city. The effect was immediate and devastating. Entire city blocks exploded under the impact. Buildings collapsed in seconds as powerful explosions ripped through the narrow streets. Shockwaves shattered windows across miles of urban neighborhoods. Within minutes, massive firestorms began spreading throughout the city center. Rotterdam's old districts were particularly vulnerable. Many buildings were constructed with wood and closely packed together, allowing flames to spread rapidly from one structure to the next. Soon, a massive firestorm engulfed large sections of the city. Thick smoke rose high into the sky, visible from miles away. Civilians fled through the streets as firefighters struggled desperately to contain the growing inferno. But the destruction could not be stopped. By the time the bombing ended, much of Rotterdam's historic center had been reduced to rubble. The devastation shocked not only the Netherlands, but the entire world. The destruction of Rotterdam had an immediate and dramatic effect on the war in the Netherlands. The bombing had demonstrated the terrifying power of modern air warfare. In less than an hour, one of the largest cities in the country had been devastated. German commanders now issued a chilling warning. If the Netherlands continued to resist, other cities would suffer the same fate. The possibility that cities like Utrecht, Amsterdam, or The Hague might be destroyed forced Dutch leaders to confront a grim reality. Continuing the fight could lead to the destruction of the entire country. The following day, on May 15, 1940, the Netherlands officially surrendered to German forces. The country had been defeated in just 5 days. For Europe, the bombing of Rotterdam became a symbol of the brutal new phase of the war. Strategic bombing of cities would soon become a defining feature of the conflict. Rotterdam was one of the first major European cities to experience such devastation during the war, but it would not be the last. In the years that followed, cities across Europe, from London to Hamburg and Dresden, would face similar destruction from the air. For the people of Rotterdam, the bombing marked the beginning of a long and difficult occupation under Nazi control. Thousands of residents were left homeless. Entire neighborhoods had disappeared. Historic buildings that had stood for centuries were gone forever. Yet, despite the devastation, the city would eventually rise again. After the war ended in 1945, Rotterdam undertook one of the most ambitious reconstruction efforts in Europe. Instead of rebuilding the old medieval streets exactly as they had been, city planners chose to design a modern urban landscape. Today, Rotterdam stands as one of the most modern cities in Europe, known for its innovative architecture and massive port. But beneath the modern skyline lies the memory of May 14, 1940, a day when war transformed the city forever and reminded the world of the destructive power of aerial warfare.